Technology, weapons, armour and pottery were all very important parts of ancient Spartan industry, and they were important parts of the economy, especially the weapons which were needed for the military. Economic industry or activity in Sparta was carried out by the helots in agriculture, by the periokoi in industry and trade, and Spartan industry included bronze and pottery making. Now, just remember, there were three groups in Sparta. The Spartiates were the top group who devoted themselves to the military. The helots were the ones who did the hard work in agriculture, and the periokoi were above them. They did the work in industry and trade. So those were the three groups, and you need to keep that in mind. Sparta had iron deposits, but it would have imported copper and tin, which it mixed with iron for bronze working. So even in ancient Sparta, there was trade with other countries and importing and exporting and so on. This industry has been practised in Laconia and other Peloponnesian centres since the 8th century BC. Small figurines and larger statues were produced by the Spartan bronze industry. The oldest technique of making bronze objects involved the casting of the molten alloy in a mould. So you can see they were quite sophisticated. They knew how to make things, they knew how to use metals. You know, this was a society that existed thousands of years ago, but they did have a lot of technology. They would then beat it out into thin sheeting with a hammer. Superior quality bronze sheeting had a tin content of about 10%. By the 5th century BC, the new technique of indirect casting was developed, in which a clay model was used to produce a negative, thus making possible the mass production of cast objects. Some bronze sculptures are known from ancient times. So here's a beautiful statue of something made out of bronze, and in ancient times they had some very skilled artists who could make these beautiful statues. Pausanias was an ancient travel writer, and there was a few people in history called Pausanias. There was a king called Pausanias, a king of Sparta. There was the man who assassinated Philip II, who was the king of Macedonia and the father of Alexander the Great. The man who assassinated him was called Pausanias. And of course, Philip II got killed, and Alexander the Great became the king and conquered most of the known world. So there's been a few famous Pausaniases in history, but the one we'll look at today was an ancient travel writer. He visited Olympia and mentions a bronze statue of Zeus about 5.5 meters high. And remember, Zeus was considered to be the king of the gods in ancient Greece, and it was believed the gods lived on Mount Olympia. It was the work of Telestus of Sparta, who lived in the 6th century BC. So thousands of years after he has lived, or thousands of years after he died, his name still lives on because he was such a skilled worker. The Spartan bronze industry also produced a large range of weapons and armour to equip its soldiers. So naturally, Sparta was a very militaristic state. They led a very strict lifestyle. They wanted to have all these great soldiers, and manufacturing the best weapons and armour was an important part of that. The Spartans and Peloponnesians had revolutionised ancient warfare with the development of the phalanx. And that's the phalanx is a group of soldiers who march together, and they're a very strong group that could fight against their enemies. Each soldier was fitted with the standard kit, including a bronze helmet, a hoplon, which is a shield, a cuirass, which is a breastplate, and greaves, like cricketers' shin pads. So isn't this an extraordinary set of equipment? I think this is amazing. I think it's absolutely amazing. You've got the helmet, the shield, even the shin pads. They were very well equipped. They were very well protected. And all of this was going on over 2,000 years ago. So you can see they had a very sophisticated system. They were able to produce these weapons. They were able to mine their own minerals, such as iron, trade with other countries to get other things, and they were good at bronze working. They could manufacture all these amazing weapons and armour and so on. So I think it's very impressive and very sophisticated what they were doing. Each soldier was fitted with the standard kit, including a bronze-tipped spear and dagger. So they had the shields, the breastplates and so on, but they also had the spear and the dagger. They also had pottery, as most ancient societies did. They knew how to use clay, they knew how to make pottery. The most famous pottery is that known as Laconian III, which is dated to 575 BC. And you can see a beautiful piece of pottery here, which looks magnificent. I feel like I want to buy something like that and put it on display in my home. Isn't it wonderful? And they were making this thousands of years ago. I think it's very impressive. It was primarily interested in human subjects and telling a story. So you can see there's lots of different things on the pottery. They were telling stories and so on the pottery. The figures are painted in black with a creamy yellow sip. The Arcelus cup, this is an example of ancient pottery. It's one of the most famous examples of ancient Spartan pottery. It's a very beautiful cup. You can see the figures that are on it, and it's telling a bit of a story there. The Laconian potters eventually copied the Attic red figureware. Fitzhardinge notes that very little is known of the painters and potters and their industry. The painters were obviously specialists in their craft, who perhaps came from other upper classes, as two of them could read. Fitzhardinge points out that such trades might have been pursued by poorer Spartiates, younger sons, or those who had lost their allotted land. Remember, each Spartiate was allotted a piece of land. They were all meant to be equal, but some of them lost their land and they were known as inferiors. So those types of people might have pursued this. Small figurines, moulded clay reliefs of baked clay or terracotta, have also been found at most religious sites. So you can see they use clay and they're making these types of figurines, probably used in religious services and so on. A quantity of clay masks has been found at the Orthia sanctuary that are models of larger masks used in some rituals.